Shalom. First, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, HaKadosh. Double honors to apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, from whom I learned this truth. Shalom to the 144,000 elect. I am Mike Allah, and this is going to be a continuation on the series that I've been doing, How Do I Know? So this will be part 21. How do I know that I'm a Hebrew Israelite? Or how do I know that we are the Hebrew Israelites? And when I say we, I'm referring to the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and the natives of this land that you call America. And because the Israelites have been scattered into all nations, to all parts of the world, it doesn't limit Israelites just to those nationalities that I named. Because we are scattered, you have Israelites in all nations. So they may appear to look like another nation, but you test the spirit. So this is going to be part 21. And since we have already gone over the lineage in Genesis, gone over the progenitors that make up the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, and we've already gone over Deuteronomy, the curses that the Israelites would face because of their disobedience and not wanting to follow the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. We're going to go just touch on the whereabouts of these tribes today and the names that they have been given, because these are not biblical names that we go by today. So I'm going to go and going back into Genesis chapter 49. And I'm just going to read, and we've covered this before, but I'm just going to go back over just the verses 1 and 2, where Jacob has called his children, called his sons, to tell them what will befall them in the future. And this is Genesis 49 verse 1. Says, "And Jacob called unto his sons, and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days." Now, even though we know the last days began some 2,000 years ago, we are indeed in the end days. We're in the last days now, because never has there been a time, and so many prophecies of the Bible have come into fruition all at the same time. And we are seeing those today, in these end days. So he gathered his sons to let them know what would befall them. This is verse 2. It says, "Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father." Verse 3, the first tribe that he mentions is Reuben. It says, "Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, and the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power." So in the Hebrew, the Reuben, the name would be Reuben, and they're predominantly in the north, in North America, in the southern states of North America, because primarily they were in Florida, but as a result of the Trail of Tears and having to be enforced off of their lands, they're scattered to other southern states and even some southwestern states. And just to give you some characteristics, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these. Like I said, I just want to give you the whereabouts on some of the tribes, and I'm not going to cover all of them, because just in the interest of time, I'm going to break these up into, Lord willing, be able to do this in several lessons. And like I said, their Hebrew name is Reuben, which means "see, it's a son." And when it speaks about them being the beginning of his strength, he used the firstborn and the excellency of dignity. Some of the characteristics of the Seminole Indians was that they were well-dressed and an outgoing people, and very dignified people. They have a ruling class mentality because they never did enter into a treaty with their enemy Esau Edom, what you call the so-called white man. Because of that, they have that ruling class mentality, and they are a tribe of warriors. Like I said, they never did enter into a treaty. Verse number 4, back in Genesis 49, says, unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, and defilest thou it. He went up to my couch. And you can read more about that, because this is referring to how Reuben did have sex with one of his father's concubines, Bilhah. But you can read more about that in 1 Chronicles 5:1. And I think I'll just go ahead and go there and read some of that. It says, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but forasmuch as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, and the son of Israel. And the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. So because what he did, defiling his father's bed, the birthright was taken away from him, as far as him being the lead, the head of the tribe, being the firstborn. I'm going to bring out another verse, Genesis chapter 35 and 22, that speaks on that as well. And it says, it came to pass when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. So Israel was aware of it because it was brought to his attention. He heard it. And like I said, they are a group of warriors. They were a warrior tribe. And I'm going to go to 1 Chronicles 5, chapter 5 and verse 18. And it says, the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, of valiant men, men able to bear buckler and sword, and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war, were 40,703 that went out to war. So this is these tribes that are being named here, the Gad and Manasseh. These were valiant men. These were skilled men in war. And I'll read it in the NLT also. It says, there were 44,760 capable warriors in the armies of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. They were all skilled in combat, armed with shields, swords, and bows. So they were very skilled warriors. All right, and I'm back in Genesis 49, and I'm going to read verse 5, because verse 5 is dealing with the tribes of Simeon and the tribes of Levi. And like I said, I'm going to be brief on these. I'm not going to go get very detailed into these, but if you do want to know more about these tribes, to get a good understanding, you can always go to GMS FAQ. That's FAQ, and there you'll find Elder Apostle Tahar. You'll find Apostle Gabar and Apostle Aramlad, who will be able to give more detailed information on these. And I'm just doing these in the interest of time, trying to go through a few of the tribes, just like I said, to give you an understanding and an idea of where they are where they are today and what names they are called today. All right, and back in verse 5 of Genesis chapter 49, verse 5 says, Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. And these instruments of cruelty that's being mentioned they have use of witchcraft. They make use of witchcraft, even which we know of today about about Simeon and Levi. And I'll give you the name, the Hebrew name for Simeon, who are the Dominicans. The Hebrew name is Shemawan, which means affliction heard. And Levi, which are the Haitians, the Hebrew name for Levi would be Loya, which means joined unto me. It's joined unto me because Levi is a tribe of priests. All right. And back in Genesis 49, I'm going to read verse 6, and it says, O my soul, come not thou into their secret. And what is their secret? Their secret is that witchcraft that I just mentioned. Their secret will be voodoo for the tribe of Levi, and Bruhalia and Santeria for the tribe of Simeon. These are the witchcrafts that they are involved in. It says in verse 6 again, it says, O my soul, come not thou into their secret. Unto their assembly mine hour, be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. It says, be not thou united. So even though they both dwell on the island of Hispaniola, they are separated by a river of water. That's the only thing that separates them. All right, and though they do dwell on the same island, these two tribes do not get along, even though they are of the same nation. They're not aware that they are the same nation, and Dominicans, and they kind of look down on the Haitians. Like I said, them being on the same island and being of the same nation, they do not get along with one another. Verse 7, it says, cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So that's going into how when the northern and the southern tribes split. The southern tribes consisting of Levi, Judah, and Benjamin. Because the Levi were the tribe of priests, King Jeroboam at the time, he decided that he was going to start to allow there be priests in all of the tribes because of this split that occurred. So you had men in tribes who the Lord had not chosen to be priests. All right. And they were being set up priests even though it wasn't according to what the Lord had. The Levites were the priests. And that's why Levi are amongst all the tribes, because when the lands were also being divided up amongst the tribes, the Levites were not given a special portion of land, because they would dwell on all the lands of the various tribes. So they were scattered among all the various tribes, and they had a portion of land on each of these tribes' land. And you can read more about that in First Kings, and I'm not going to go there. First Kings 13 and right around 33. All right, and let's see, that's 3 tribes that we've covered. I'm going to just cover one more tribe, just in the interest of time, because I don't want to make this too long. And we're going to bring out the tribe of Judah. We're going to drop down back in Genesis 49, drop down to verse number 8. It says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be on the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. And the name Judah in the Hebrew is Yahweh, which means Yahweh thanks. And the Judites are primarily the Negroes, or the so-called blacks that you see in North America today. Like I said, being that they were brought here through the transatlantic slave trade. That's where a lot of the Judites ended up right here in North America. And that's not to say that some of them didn't get dispersed in other lands, in areas in South America. But for the most part, they dwell here in North America. It says, and just to give you a little bit further understanding, I'm going to read verse 8 again. It says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Because right now we know that Judah, since the tribes have come back together, Judah is the lead tribe, of all 12 tribes. All right, and the reason being is that, and I think a little bit further down we'll get to see, it says in verse 8, it says, thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies, thy father's children shall bow down before thee. And that means that the Judites would be responsible for leading the tribes and leading us back into the understanding of who we are, who the Israelites are. It says they will be getting vengeance on Esau, and the other tribes will acknowledge Judah as the head tribe, because this knowledge and this truth was brought to the North American Negroes in the 1960s. And in 1969, to be exact, when Abba Bivens began to teach this truth to the Judites here in America. He brought out this truth in Harlem, New York. Just to give you some reference of Judah being that head tribe and being acknowledged as that head tribe. Says he will get vengeance on Esau, and you can take a look at that. And I'm not going to go to all of them, but I'm going to give you some precepts on it. It says Exodus 23 and 27, and you can also see it further in Psalms 18, verse 47. And also Micah 5 and 7. I'm gonna go to Micah 5 and 7. Micah 5 and 7 reads, says, and the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people as dew from the Lord Yahweh, as showers upon the grass, that tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. So what this is saying is that the Judites will come to know who they are in this land of North America. Like I said, Abba Bivens brought this truth out and began to bring this truth out in 1969. And that's what it's meaning when it says Jacob shall be in the midst of many people as a dew from the Lord Yahweh, as showers upon the grass. This is where they begin in North America, is where the Judites will begin to get knowledge of themselves and understand who they are, and this truth will begin to get to be spread. As we're seeing today, it's all over the world. Like I said, in Judah is the head tribe of the nation of Israel, and because this truth came to Judah first. I'm going to go back to Genesis 49, and I'm reading verse 9. It says, Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. And when it's saying gone up, it said Judah is the young lion. So Judah is that young lion that's beginning to know who they are and beginning to understand who they are. It said that because at this time, the Negroes in the early '60s, the Negroes kind of forgot who they were, and even though there's some movements that were out, civil rights movements and Black Power movement and things of that nature, because of infiltration and because of other reasons, these movements just kind of fizzled out. These movements were really making no gain, were making no ground, and they weren't giving any revelation as to who we were as a people. All right. It wasn't until Abba Bivens began to teach the truth in 1969 that there began to be some understanding of who we are in the late 60s. It says, and back in verse 9, it says, Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. All right. And that meaning they had begun to see that Esau is their enemy as well as the other nations. It says he stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? And with this truth being brought to us in 1969 by Abba Bivens, the Lord had begun to rouse us up. The Lord has woke us up, so we begin to understand who the Israelites are and who the various tribes are. Verse 10, it says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. All right, and that's just bringing out the fact that the ruling tribe being Judah, that's where Yahweh Shai comes from. Yahweh Shai comes from that tribe of Judah, and you can read more about the lineage. You can read more about the lineage in Matthew. I believe that's chapter 1. And it goes over the lineage. All right. Let's see, I'm back in Genesis 49 and verse 10. I'm going to read that again. It says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, Shiloh being Yahweh Shai, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Verse 11 says, binding his foal into a vine, and his ass's coat unto the choice vine, he washed his garment in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. It says his eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. And this is just giving a description of Yahweh Shai, which you could find in Revelation chapter 1, and go down to about verse 14, and you'll be able to see that the description, because It says his eyes were red. You know, as sometimes when we drink wine, our eyes begin to turn red. And Yahushua was one who drank wine. All right. And like I said, I'm not gonna go very deep into these. I'm just trying to give you an idea as to where these tribes are today. Oh yeah, and I also wanted to mention that to give proof that Yahushua comes out of the tribe of Judah, you can go to Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 14. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it there. I'm not going to make this long. And I pray that this has been edifying to the listener. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodesh. Shalom.